Greetings.
Welcome. I was going to act like I was frozen there right in the beginning. Always off to a great start. Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. I think we have one person in the audience right now. That one person, thank you. Thank you for being here. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate
Oh,
it. Oh,
5.
we have 5. Oh, 4 on mine and 1 on yours. It's normally the other
Woo.
way. Well, thank you for joining, guys. Say hello in the comments if you're here. Um, I
Hello.
And yeah, let's see. We got Michael saying, "Yo, Elon, buddy." We have a comment here from someone else saying, "Hey guys, please work on your speaker volume. I've watched all your podcasts on my Android mobile over headphones, and it sounds too low. Have to bump it up to 90%." That is.
I don't know what to tell you, PK Hamu 2005, but when I'm editing it in Premiere, I've got everything mastered and I've got a limiter set to -6 LUFS. So
it's like
I
up
don't know what to
there.
tell you.
Yeah, it's
That's up there.
interesting. Yeah, it makes me wonder if the volume on some of the podcast platforms, if they're doing some type of volume
Compression or yeah.
lowering or something. I know with a lot of this stuff, if you kind of bring it in and it's too loud, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts will bring it down. But I don't know. Can you
Well, he is saying I have watched all your podcasts. So do you mean on YouTube? Because that's
yeah, maybe the live stream. Yeah, it's weird. Because I watch it back and I don't have a problem, but yeah, I'll have to double check. I'll have to double check.
yeah.
Joel Gonzalez is here. Oh, I'm showing that comment again. Joel Gonzalez is here. What's up, Joel? How you doing? And he
Hi,
says the
Joel.
volume is good on his end. So yeah. And
Streaming through a TV to soundbar.
Yeah.
Okay. We're on your TV right now? Wow.
We're famous. We're famous. Well, thank you guys for joining. I think we're going to have an interesting conversation tonight about streaming wars. And I know everybody's favorite thing is streaming audio. That's all anybody ever wants to talk about. Not really, but I'm hoping, and this is me being hopeful, and spoiler alert, this is kind of like what I will talk about a little later, but I'm hopeful that eventually, as the internet becomes a little more robust in many different areas of the world, that we will see lossless audio streaming for movies and TV shows instead of the compressed stuff that we get now, because IMAX Enhanced and all of that fun stuff sounds great on paper, but we're still looking at a compressed source. Can you tell the difference? I don't know. I'm sure there are differences. The main problems are not as simple, which we'll kind of get into a little later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm hoping you guys will enjoy the conversation. Jeffrey is here. Thank you, Jeffrey. I think this is our 6th episode. He's been on every single one. So Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Yeah, and he comments on my videos and stuff, and yeah. But Elon, like, before we get started, anything new going on with you, man? We never ask each other that, and I like to say, hey, what's going on in your neck of the woods? Are you working on any cool videos? Like, what's happening?
I mean, I'm still debating. Well, I'm still discussing with my wife, because when I first got the Golden Ear soundbar and subwoofer and in-ceiling speakers in, I was hoping to have a 5.1 system in my living room, just because it is not ideal to have like a full-on Atmos system. So she keeps kind of going back and forth if she really wants me to cut holes in the ceiling for the rear surrounds. because that's really the only place I can put it, in my open concept living room. So I'm still trying to convince her that it's
Yeah.
basically going to be pretty much invisible. Just, grills you'll be able to see, of course, but they're very,
Yeah.
very thin. So, I mean, honestly, unless you're looking up, you're probably not even going to notice it if you're just somebody walking in the house.
Yeah.
So, because I really want to get those in because I wanted to have a video on the whole system as a whole.
Mhm.
Because I could technically just do the sound bar and the subwoofer right now if I really wanted
Yeah.
to. But, I want to see how it sounds with the whole shebang with surrounds and everything.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, that sounds awesome. Hopefully, the convincing is it will happen.
yeah.
I think
I mean,
painting the grills the same color as the ceiling.
ceiling is just
Um,
white.
yeah,
So,
so they should blend in
yeah,
fairly well. Like,
I think so too.
so
Um, it's just the whole cutting of holes that she is not too excited about. But I
yeah,
mean, we're both pretty handy. We've done a lot of renovations in the past
yeah,
2 houses that we've lived in. So,
yeah. And I think
can be done.
drywall in particular is fairly easy to patch in. Ceiling stuff requires a little bit more like ingenuity, I guess, because
Because it's above
yeah.
you.
It's above you, gravity, things like
Right.
that, but what is gravity really? But a construct no, I'm kidding. Yeah, no, that I imagine that would still be doable pretty easily.
Yeah.
They make things that make that, easier, so
Yeah.
hopefully that works out.
I know because I was discussing, eventually having the dream theater on my property, but I would have to get an outbuilding installed,
Mm,
which is not cheap.
right.
But she even put out the suggestion, well, what if we just like kind of put an extension of the main house, or like maybe even put it above the garage or something, and then
Yeah,
just have like a staircase that goes up there. And I'm like, oh, well, that might work, but I don't know. So we're
yeah,
we're still kind of debating on that because, I still want to have all of the stuff that's in my proper theater on my brother-in-law's property to come over to my own property, within the next year or two. So just more things we need to think about to actually make that happen. Because
yeah.
yeah, when I had the live stream with Jordan talking to the COO or CEO of Stark Sound,
Yeah,
um, he said he was going to try and hook me up with some like
okay,
extremely powerful in walls
okay.
for my
Nice,
dream theater. So
nice,
yeah, so that
man.
I might, you know, take him up on that offer if it comes down to that.
Hey, yeah, that would be awesome content to see, honestly. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, because that was part of the whole deal. Is like, you know, he even said like that would be some really good content for YouTube if you just kind of documented the whole, process of building that and then showing our speakers and whatnot and the installation and stuff. So
yeah,
yeah, could be a
for
nice
sure,
hookup.
dude, for sure. Yeah, man, like it's been super busy here over the past few days. I made the video obviously about the home theater kind of update, and so
Yeah.
today has been literally me trying to figure out how high to mount the TV on the stand. Like how high do I want the
Right.
TV off the ground because that's a big deal, and it's going to be a compromise. The TV on the stand as it is now is pretty much at the perfect height, center of the screen, right in your eye line. That's really like the ideal height. But I'm gonna have to raise it up about 9-10 inches to make clearance for bigger center channels. So it's a compromise, but I think it will be worth it in the end. And honestly, like reclining in the Valencia theater seats, being able to use the headrest is not going to be an issue, and the improvement in sound quality by going like bringing that center channel out will be very, very, very fun, very nice.
Once you get the TV mounted on that stand,
Hmm.
how easy is it to elevate it or lower it?
No idea.
Okay.
I think it probably required taking the TV off
Oh,
of the stand.
really?
Yeah, yeah, because I mean, all the weight is on the TV stand. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'll have to look. It might be a simple thing. It might not. But essentially, from from the floor to the bottom of the TV, I think I want to probably be around 32 inches, which would put the middle of the screen. Just add 19 inches to that because it's like 38 inches, like high. So half of that obviously would be like the middle. Yeah, so it's not the most ideal, but I think it will be. I mean, I can't review any center channels right now, so
Yeah.
or before. So yeah, I'm excited about that. I have some potential or more tutorials coming on top of what I originally planned. Odyssey finally got back to me and is hopefully providing me with a multi QX license and one of their calibrated microphones to make videos with. So that's exciting.
Yay.
I'm stoked to check that out actually. See how it kind of compares to Dirac and my manual calibration stuff. So that should be fun. And
Do you happen to know the model number again of that calibration microphone?
it's
The
off the top of my head.
something?
I have to look at my it's like a AC1MX, I think. It's
That's
about
right.
$80 on Amazon. I don't know if it's necessarily needed. It is individually calibrated, whereas the little Eiffel Tower microphone, it is the same Eiffel Tower microphone as the one that comes with your receiver, but it's actually like got a calibration file associated with it, and it can only be used with multi QX. I keep wanting to say multi EQX, which is multi QX. It's just a weird. I'll have to get used to it. It's gonna be a lot of bloopers in that video of me saying the wrong thing. But yeah, I'm excited about that. And yeah, just general life. Good. General life. Back to making
I
videos
am general life.
using the Pocket 3. Maybe at the end we can kind of gush about that a little bit. I don't want to get too off topic here. But yeah, it's dude, that thing is awesome.
Yeah. How awesome is it?
Let's see. Oh,
Because here's my issue with the calibration microphone.
it's very blurry on my end.
Oh, it is?
Oh, there it goes. It just popped in. Maybe it just took a second.
Oh, sweet.
So yeah.
Because that's the one that they're saying they're going to send to you.
Yes.
But that also looks almost identical to the one that just comes with a Denon or Marantz.
Yes.
So I wonder if that one's just got better internal components or something.
I honestly think it might be the same mic. However, from the factory, like they just throw the mic in the box, right? They don't it's not like individually calibrated or anything. So it would be kind of like getting a UMic 1 without the calibration file. Like it would probably probably work, but will it like it's not going to be as accurate as having those offsets that is set. Basically they compare it against like a reference essentially. So yeah, I'm curious. I know let's see, Lynx One said that he bought one when I had a Marantz 7706. The mic is needed; it makes a difference. So I'm glad to hear that. I'm really interested to check that out.
Okay.
What's funny is I've had the 6300H since like May last year. I've never run Odyssey on it. Since I've gotten it, I do like the graphic EQ manual calibration. So this will be the first time, but I finally got multi QX to work on the PC, and yeah, just playing around with the virtual AVR has been pretty cool. trying to see like basically just seeing what you could do. And I know that like there are rabbit holes you can go down where you can like use REW in tandem with that to like
Mhm.
feed it measurements and house curves and stuff. And I'm like, I think I'm just gonna start simple and then kind of like work my way down that rabbit hole eventually. Because sometimes it can just kind of get away from you, and you
Oh
just
yeah.
want to sit down and enjoy your audio. But yeah, that's what's going on with me. And yeah, before we dive fully in, if you have a topical question or comment during what we're talking about here, we like to keep things structured here at Eyes and Ears. I don't know why I said that. No, we try to
Sounded
keep it.
so professional though.
I know we try to keep it structured here. If I'm being completely transparent, like corporate speak. No, but if you have like a topical question of what we're talking about or a comment, then try to put a TQ in front with a colon. Colon's not as important as the TQ. Just easy for us to see that and show it while we're talking about stuff. And then if you have a general question, put a GQ like the magazine and ask away. We'll try to answer those at the end, or if there's like a lull in what we're talking about. But normally those are kind of answered at the end of the live stream / podcast. And then finally, I always like to mention this: super chats and super stickers. If you want to show your support for what we do, you can hit us with a super chat or super sticker. These are not required, highly recommended, but I'm kidding. I always like saying that. But no, they're not required at all. But like, it's just a way for you to show your support. We appreciate you guys. I swear.
I mean, we
Like
are guys, so we
that's
guys
true.
appreciate
That's
you
true.
guys.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you. Thank you guys for joining us. And Elon, you kind of sent me a message, said, "Hey, what do you think about this topic this week?
Mhm.
Why did you choose? Like, what made you go this topic? And why do you think it's like interesting to talk about? I hate to put you on the spot like that. We didn't pre-screen any questions here, so
We did not. We
no.
are off the cuff, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we do. Well, first of all, hi, Craig.
Hi, Craig.
Another
Thank you
another
for
person
joining.
who has joined us pretty much every week. So
Yeah,
shout
and
out to
Nick Russell
Craig.
is here too. He's been here for the past few at least.
Yes.
Um, Anthem room correction all day, dude. If I had Arc Genesis, I would use it and I would be making videos about it. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I already have a contact at Paradigm that can hook me up with some Anthem products eventually. So that would be cool. Definitely check it out.
Dun dun dun.
So and
Anywho,
yeah,
yeah. So I chose this topic just because, I was kind of going through some of the stuff I'd already spoken about this year in
yeah,
2024 on my own channel. And I just kind of touched on it lightly. I didn't really go into that much detail, but it's just interesting that, 2023 IMAX Enhanced, or DTS for that matter, DTS promised in January of 2023 when they were at CES, when I actually got to go to a meeting with Technodad. They said sometime later this year, we are going to debut our own streaming audio codec on Disney Plus. It is exclusive to Disney Plus. They couldn't say which movie it was going to be, but it was most likely going to be a Marvel title.
yeah, yeah.
And so, obviously, and I made a video about that last year as well. Months go by, I keep emailing, like every couple of months or so, I keep
Yeah.
emailing my contact at DTS that I got while I was at CES, being like, hey, what about that DTS, IMAX Enhanced Signature Sound that's coming to Disney Plus? Any update on that?
Yeah.
They just kept saying, no, but we will definitely let you know. We'll keep you in the loop. It's
yeah.
like, okay, cool. They never did. And then obviously CES 2024 came around. DTS was once again there, but this time at least they had. I mean, I wasn't there, but they at least had a working prototype that you could actually witness in person. You could hear it. I think they just queued up something on Disney Plus, like some like special Disney Plus app,
Yeah.
like beta version where they could actually use their own proprietary audio codec.
Right.
And people said it sounded great and maybe even just a little bit better than streaming Dolby Atmos, which, most of you probably know it goes along this stream of a Dolby digital audio codec.
Dolby Digital Plus. Get it
Correct.
right.
Dolby Digital
Slightly
Plus.
higher bit rate than just Dolby Digital, but
Yes.
I don't know what the max bit rate is on that. Do you?
I don't.
I know Plus used to. I mean, for all intents and purposes, back when HD DVD was largely popular.
Mhm.
Was it ever popular?
I mean,
Dolby Digital, right? It had its day. It had its
Yeah.
day. I
It's
think Dolby
15
Digital
minutes.
Plus was 640 kilobytes, whereas DTS at that time was 1.5.
Megabytes?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's almost double, pretty much the over double. But yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah. No, that's good because yeah, I mean it's just because Dolby Atmos has dominated Atmos especially, or just immersive audio in general, ever since it became something you could do at home. Sure, DTSX was close behind, and you can find those two on anything nowadays.
Yeah,
IMAX Enhanced, not so much. Auro 3D, not so much. Not until you get to the kind of more expensive AVRs.
right.
But yeah, I'm hopeful that 2024 may be the year where things finally get shaken up in the streaming audio sector, and Dolby Atmos no longer has just this monopoly on everything.
Yeah,
Because I'm hopeful that if and when DTS finally rolls out their IMAX Enhanced Signature Sound on Disney Plus, and then if it gets enough traction and people prefer it, then I think, Netflix probably, because Netflix was actually one of the first adopters of Dolby Atmos content.
yeah,
And they'll probably be, knocking on Disney's door saying, how do we get a piece of that IMAX Enhanced?
yeah,
So I'm just really looking forward to the competition because that's what makes everything more interesting. That's what makes people want to innovate more and faster. It's only good for us consumers if there's more competition because Dolby Atmos has been king for too long, honestly.
yeah,
So because of that, now it's mandatory pretty much with all the new titles, all new 4K Blu-rays, like have to be mastered in, or at least the tent pole, the large, big movies and stuff.
right.
In indie movies, obviously, they're probably just still 5.1 or 7.1.
Mm-hmm.
But, because of that, because it's become so saturated and because it's so in demand, all the engineers can't really keep up and do an incredible job, with every single project that they're on. So hopefully this can, just kind of shake things up and
Yeah.
and make post-production facilities take on multiple clients and possibly learn how to do stuff other than Dolby Atmos. Maybe there's going to be some post-production facilities that specialize in IMAX Enhanced and DTSX and DTSX Pro and all that kind of stuff. And then there's Auro 3D.
Yeah.
Um,
I want to address this real quick.
yeah.
So David, or anyone who's just tuning in, what we are discussing is streaming audio and the kind of promises that have been made over the years by Disney, GTS, IMAX Enhanced, all that stuff, we're kind of at a standstill in terms of streaming audio. A lot of stuff was promised around the time, or kind of promoted around the time that Disney Plus kind of came out with their IMAX Enhanced program, right? Which honestly didn't really change anything but the aspect ratio. Let's be honest. The video quality did not improve whatsoever. It's the same exact video quality that you get. It's just now those black bars are gone, or smaller on select scenes, or in the case of something like Avengers Endgame, the entire movie. However, on the audio side of stuff, nothing has changed. There's been no IMAX Enhanced stuff for streaming audio in particular. I know I think Oprah Winfrey, thank you, Oprah, for joining. You get a car, and I think, but they mentioned that if you have a Sony TV or PlayStation, they have the IMAX video and audio. And while that's true, absolutely, it is still, for all intents and purposes, or Bravia Core, for all intents and purposes, that DTS track is just a DTS track. There's nothing really special about it. There's no IMAX processing that's been applied to it. The same with all of these movies, right? The only thing that's really different with all these movies is, again, that expanded aspect ratio most of the time. They haven't gone back, to my knowledge at least, and remastered these scenes or applied IMAX processing. And that was kind of my whole issue with the whole IMAX Enhanced format to begin with, which was, there really isn't, like, IMAX Enhanced, like IMAX, for those that don't know, will typically process most of their movies in-house in some type of way, be it on the audio side, on the video side. They'll, when you're looking at these massive format screens, they apply their own processing. They've been doing this for years. A lot of movies are shot with IMAX cameras now. But it was just kind of, in my opinion, more of a way for studios to just go, let's relabel this like aspect ratio switching thing to IMAX Enhanced, so people instantly know what it means. Anyway, sorry, went off topic there for a second. But yeah, so we're, David, we're talking about streaming audio in 2024. Are we going to see any improvements to that between IMAX Enhanced, any other formats? Are we going to see lossless Dolby Atmos streaming at some point through like an Apple TV or, whatnot? So that's kind of what this topic is, a conversation is about.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, just because, it's not only DTS, but also Auro 3D has promised us that
we'll see.
It's
well, sorry.
Yeah, I know.
Before you even bring up the share screen, we'll see.
I know, because Auro 3D is, at least right now, it's still primarily just in Europe. That's where you can get native Auro 3D immersive audio mixes on 4K Blu-rays and stuff. But as you can see here, like let's see, Auro CX, we should go down to that, because Auro CX is going to be their version of a streaming audio codec, right? Being touted as the first and only scalable next generation audio codec. This codec is primarily designed for streaming, but can also be used in broadcast. So this not only is for, potentially for Netflix if they decide to adopt Auro CX at some point, but also just your general broadcasts of, sports games and I don't know, the news. What else do you watch on broadcast television besides sports and the news?
I imagine news, they just have like eventually like a voice of God thing coming down. Where it's just like breaking news. It's like, oh, what? That would be pretty funny. Pretty funny.
But yeah, as far as specs are concerned, Auro CX enables scalable quality from lossless to transparent to lossy. So it has all of those things in a single stream. So that way, that's why they say it's scalable. So just depending on if you're just listening out of TV speakers, or if you're listening out of an AVR that doesn't support Auro 3D, or if you're listening out of an AVR that does support Auro 3D, it's just one single stream that can carry
Right.
all of these signals. So then you're going to get the best quality that you can possibly get, depending on which component you have.
Correct. Yeah.
And
Correct.
Auro CX has scalable sample rates that allow a single bit stream to carry 48, 96, and 192 kilohertz, giving the decoder the option to extract only what it needs from a single encode, depending on its capabilities. Because kind of the whole thing with this new lease on life that Auro has is because they went bankrupt. I think it was 2022. But then
Yeah.
some other like investment company snatched him up like just a couple months later after they went bankrupt. And then they've just been developing this Auro CX and Auro Scene and, new Auro 3D apparently. And because
Interesting. Yeah.
they're now known as new Auro BV.
I,
So they're just like basically a new company.
yeah. But will people care? I think that's the real thing. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, Oro is such a niche thing even now, and I don't see many people talking about it outside of their upmixing, which I'm like,
Mhm.
that's great, but I'm not going to revamp my whole system. I know it can work with a Dolby Atmos speaker layout, but Dolby Atmos is kind of the primary format for most
Yeah.
movies. I mean, I'd say, I mean, pretty much 100% of Hollywood films are mixed in Dolby Atmos for theatrical release. But does that necessarily mean that we're going to get a Dolby Atmos mix at home? If you're Universal, probably not, even though that one does exist. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, there are a couple of topical points I wanted to show here.
Mhm.
Let's see. Paul E says some of it's going to come down to the mastering as well as the bit rate. Dolby Digital Plus tracks that come on disc are decent. It's the streaming services that seem to make a mess of them or that compress them a lot. 100%, Paul.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've had this suspicion for years, and I think other people have as well, that services like Netflix, Disney Plus, Amazon Prime are all compressing these to sound good on TVs and soundbars first and foremost. Like they're limiting certain dynamics to sound good on those because most people are not going to be listening at or near reference on a home theater. We're kind
Right.
of the minority here when it comes to that. So immediately there's already a like decrease in overall dynamic range, which is honestly, I think it kind of makes sense because Elon, I don't know if this happens with you, but anytime I watch a movie on any of these streaming services, outside of Netflix is pretty good with this, but on like Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, if I'm watching a movie, I normally have to crank the volume higher than I would if I was watching on a disc.
For sure.
And I think that comes down to them compressing it down, like pressing the peaks down, so you end up having to bring it up. But by doing that, by compressing those down, you're limiting. You're almost they're almost doing like a baked in night mode, where
Yeah.
like you
Yeah.
crank it, and so like now it's loud, but like on the disc, maybe there was like the peak is up here, and the quiet sound is down here. Whereas on the streaming, we might be looking at something closer to that.
Right.
It's kind of like not as dynamic, unfortunately. So yeah, I think I don't know what your opinion on that is, but it's kind of a suspicion I've had for quite a while.
No, that's true. It seems like every time I watch not just a movie, but just TV and anything on a streaming service, typically I'll have my Marantz
Hmm.
AVR set to, I don't know, close to 50. I mean, I know that's an arbitrary number. That's just the volume level, but it's typically around 50, 52.
Hmm.
When I'm watching, um, when I'm watching something on Netflix or Disney Plus, it seems like I start there. I start around 50. And then as I'm watching it, a few minutes go by and I'm like, man, the dialogue is kind of hard to hear. So then I bump it up to
That's it.
53. And then a couple minutes go by. Man, the dialogue's kind of hard to hear again. I bump it up to 55, 56. A few minutes later, man, I need to turn it up again. Like eventually I'll get to where I don't
Yeah.
need to turn it up anymore, but that's just par for the course right now.
Yeah.
I have to just keep putting it up and up and up just a little bit
Yeah.
because I don't know, my ears get fatigued or something, or I don't know.
That's weird. That's funny. So you don't use the dB scale. You just use like the 0 to 100 or the 1 to 100.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're a wild man, Elon. You're a wild man. You're an audio dude. What is up with you? No, yeah, I can't. I've calibrated a couple systems locally where they want that app. Like when I'm calibrating, I switch it over to the dB scale because I know where that is, and then after the fact, I'll switch it back so like they're more comfortable with that because they see like 0 dB, like what minus something. What does that mean? Yeah, it's interesting, but I keep my stuff on like the dB scale. I'm just weird. Like I got to know how far away from reference I am when I'm watching a movie. What do I
Yeah.
know?
I know.
What do I know?
What
Yeah,
do you know?
I know we do have some topical questions here that I think we could probably answer real quick. I wouldn't
Yeah,
consider these
sure.
general questions. As far as streaming audio goes, is it better to stream through a stream stick like a Fire Stick 4K Max plugged into the receiver? Excuse me, or through a TV app connected to the receiver via eARC? Um, Elon, I'll let you like if you want to. I don't. Do you use eARC at all on
Yeah.
your stuff?
Yeah. Because it just the way that everything is situated,
Hmm.
since I have it mounted above the TV is mounted above the fireplace, but the one connect box of my Samsung TV is in a cabinet to the side.
Hmm.
That's also next to the Marantz receiver. So yeah, I have to do eARC.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I don't have, at least there I don't have an Apple TV 4K like I do in my proper theater.
Right.
So yeah, I've got to do eARC, and yeah, it seems like everything it works great and it sounds
Yeah.
fine. Um,
I've not noticed a single difference between streaming from the Apple TV 4K
mhm,
or the like let's say connected directly to the receiver or the streaming app on the LG OLED that I have, the C1. I honestly uh, for YouTube and like Disney Plus, Netflix, I will typically just use the built-in like web OS on the LG C1 using eARC.
mhm,
I find it super convenient. I'm also a fan of taking the like the quality is identical. Like it doesn't change at all
mhm.
from like the Apple 4K TV. I'm not feeding it through any type of Lumagen or Mad VR. I don't have a projector. I don't have a need for those things. So
Yeah,
going direct, taking a to me, I've always been a fan of taking as many sources out as you can between like what you're trying to watch. So like, Netflix, Amazon Prime, especially if it's on a TV that can, kind of give you that good experience.
mhm.
And then also I think that was the like at the time when we watched uh, Rings of Power, it was the only way to get Dolby Vision
Oh yeah,
on that. So I think on the Apple TV, I was having problems with the HDR10
yeah,
on that. So yeah, it's been like to me, I think that it should be identical. I can't say in all cases that it is the exact same audio experience going from that, but I think
mhm,
for the most part, um, I always think that people tend to overthink it, I guess.
yeah,
Whereas like it's honestly the same. It shouldn't be any different unless you're using something that is not as capable in terms of display or whatnot.
mhm.
Yeah. So Kevin asks if either of us use Voodoo to
Oh
stream
yeah,
movies.
I was
Um,
about to bring this one up.
well, I'm sorry,
Um,
I took that from you, Elon. I took
no,
that
that's
from you.
that's perfect because I was gonna search for it anyway. But yeah, I do use Voodoo because I have all of my digital copies of all of my movies, 4K Blu-rays that I've purchased in the past. I
Mm-hmm.
have them all on in a Voodoo account. And yeah, I mean, as far like I can see Dolby Atmos at the top of the screen if it is in fact Dolby Atmos. Um, so if you're not seeing Dolby Atmos, I don't know. You just got to make sure that every single component in your signal chain is Dolby Atmos compatible. Because my Marantz is compatible with Dolby Atmos, my Samsung TV is compatible, my speakers are. So it's like, so all those things in that signal chain can handle Dolby Atmos. Because that's the thing about streaming is that Netflix, Disney Plus, Vudu, whatever, there's metadata or whatever that
Yeah.
notices if you indeed have something that supports Dolby Atmos.
Yeah, maybe
Um,
it's getting
s-
flagged that it's not supported.
yeah, so maybe something in the signal chain doesn't support Dolby Atmos, and that's why you're
Yeah.
not actually getting Atmos.
I don't know.
But
It's weird. Dude. It's such a Kevin. It's such a finicky system sometimes, where like
yeah,
multiple power cycles later of equipment, everything's working again. I've had that
right,
where it's like my wife and I will start a movie. I'm like, wait a minute, no, something's wrong. Like I'm not getting Dolby Atmos, or I'm not getting HDR or something.
right,
And then it's like, let me turn everything off and let me turn everything back on. Thankfully, with TVs, the startup time is like non-existent.
mm,
On well, unless you have a Vizio, but but the startup time is like non-existent. So it's like you're not having to turn off projectors and wait for those
right,
to like come back up to full brightness and all that stuff. But yeah, it's still kind of a nuisance. Like it's not 100%. There's that the old thing of, have you tried turning it off and on again? And that's very true. Like any type of issues you have you tried turning it off and on again? Um,
right.
and Kevin actually did mention that he watched Mad Max 2 stream and the very low volume and the Atmos lower than poor.
Whoa,
Depending on where you watched it, uh, and I think you might be talking about the original Mad Max 2, like not the, because I don't think he's talking about the sequel that's coming out, the Furiosa movie. I think it's literally
yeah,
Mad Max
like
2, which thankfully you weren't watching Beyond Thunderdome because nobody needs to see Tina Turner. But anyway, I've watched all the movies, by the way. No, I think I've had an issue with it's called Max now, but HBO Max for years. Their audio quality is just absolute garbage on all of
yeah,
every device I played it through, especially on older movies. If you're trying to play their older catalog of movies, I was trying to watch. I don't remember. I think it was like it was Analyze This. That Billy
mm,
Crystal and
yeah.
Robert De Niro movie.
Mhm.
Like the audio is so like compressed and thin sounding. Obviously older movie, but man, it was. I was just like, that was kind of like one of the last few things I watched, and then canceled because I was like, screw this, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it.
Yeah,
Paying for that, it's so it just it's ridiculous, man, to me.
yeah, no
Um,
kidding.
and then we'll touch on one more here because I figure it's kind of not necessarily audio related, but um, he's asking about the terrible picture quality from Netflix lately. I'm in the Midwest with Spectrum. Atmos mixes have always been just okay, but man, that poor picture quality is killing me. I haven't had Netflix for a minute, so I can't comment on that.
Hmm.
I will say that occasionally, and I'm hardwired into my network. We have gig service here, so 1 gig down, 1 gig up, and I have noticed things you would think being hardwired would like basically get you instant 4K when you start a stream. I'm also using the USB Ethernet adapter on the LG C1, so it's actually not maxed out by whatever the NIC, the network interface card in the C1 is. So I'm getting around 300 to 400 megabytes down versus the cap of 100 on the Ethernet port on the TV. So you'd think that it would instantly just bam go, but it hasn't been the case on like Disney Plus. It normally takes about 20 to 30 seconds for it to kick up to full quality.
Yeah.
So it starts like compressed, and then it will finally kind of reach its pinnacle there, or its max resolution. And I think that Kez, what you might actually be experiencing, depending on your internet speed, obviously, is a server load reducing the overall resolution that it's being streamed at. I've noticed that with Netflix. You could have my wife and I, the last time we had Netflix, we watched Fall of the House of Usher. And I would notice that like there were times where like the video quality would just dip. Like it would just, we're watching a scene and then all of a sudden it was like, whoa, 480p. You
Yeah,
know,
like
it was
all
like,
pixelated and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it takes you out of the experience. It's like I'm paying, I mean, Netflix now is like $24, $25, right? To stream in 4K. And I'm like, I'm paying for this, and this is the experience I'm getting. And I know the internet can be kind of volatile and kind of wishy-washy in terms of, even with like fiber, which is what we have. So it's like we're not sharing our connection with everybody else like a cable, like Spectrum would technically, because it's over, cable. So we're not limited by, what the people on our block are doing. We pretty much get gig service 100% of the time. It's just a weird thing. I think we're hitting like server capacity. Like maybe too many people are trying to watch a show you're watching at a peak time or something, and the servers are just kind of can't handle it, or they're having to switch servers because maybe they have some the Amazon web server space, and then it switches over to someplace else, but it has to do that. Maybe those other servers are in 4 states over. Who knows?
Yeah.
You don't know.
You never know.
Do you
Where
currently have
are the
Netflix?
servers? I do. And
Yeah.
in
Have you
fact,
noticed anything?
we actually just, we're late to the party, but we watched Follow the House of Usher just last month.
I'm sorry. It's an awful show. Dreadful show.
It's pretty cool, based on Edgar Allan Poe poems.
We can talk about it. We can talk about it after.
Yeah, but I mean like you were saying, there were dips where all of a sudden it just became pixelated. And we're like, what the hell's this?
Yeah, yeah.
But then it would buffer and then come back and it looked great. The blacks were great. There's a lot of usage of just really dark scenes, but then lightning will flash or something will flash to where the whole entire scene is just lit up. And, I thought that was pretty cool. Like, I guess speaking about cinematography or something, but
yeah, that show did have amazing cinema. I really love the cinematography.
Yeah.
And the jump scares. Because
Right.
there are plenty.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. So yeah, I didn't notice anything all that out of the ordinary other than what I normally experience.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of used to the picture quality going out every once in a while and then rebuffering.
Also, that's a Mike Flanagan production. So the video quality is already going to be pretty high, but he has all of his movies and shows tend to have this kind of like subdued color palette in a way.
Yeah.
Most of the time. So like Doctor Sleep, Fall of the House of Usher, Haunting of Bly Manor, Midnight Club, like all of it. Midnight Mass was another one. Midnight Mass was a little different, but yeah. So all of his stuff, honestly, the fact that those look as good as they do when they work well, being so dark. I mean, what is the hardest thing to compress, right? Dark scenes.
Yeah.
all of his shows are incredibly dark most of the time. Like there's
Mhm.
a lot of like darkness. So yeah, that's yeah, video quality on that was great. But like you said, we had those issues. Kez actually mentioned that his Amazon Prime picture quality is perfect. So that does lead me to believe that he's maybe
Mm.
running into some server side issues on Netflix that is just beyond their control. So
Yeah. Or
um,
just, just the place
internet
you
being the
are in
internet.
the
Yeah.
country, like, it just happens to be maybe a
Yeah.
little bit tougher to get high quality picture 100% of the time in your area. I don't know.
Yeah. It's a strange thing, man. It's a strange thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to the audio stuff, I really do hope that we see some type of push this year
Mhm.
for, did I just say this year? Put an SH on the end of this. I really,
This year.
this year. So, um, I was kind of like I don't know what that was, but, yeah, no, I really, we need a push
Yeah.
basically. Video, streaming quality has come a long way. There are many instances where I think if you put something up side by side, disc versus streaming of the same movie, I think a lot of people, unless you're watching a 200-inch screen, would be hard pressed to tell the difference.
Mhm.
The compression codecs have come a long way and being very efficient and getting a lot out of a little in terms of like you get nice clarity, nice quality. It's honestly it can be imperceptible to the source sometimes depending on the motion in the scene for very little bit rate, which is a lot. Like it's pretty awesome when you think about like how far we've come with video compression.
Mhm.
But with audio compression, we've just kind of hit a standstill. Like,
Yeah.
I think the importance of audio compression is not as high because we are a visual people.
Yeah.
We tend to look at the visuals first, which is why people are like, I want a massive TV, and they get a sound bar. Like
Right.
a lot of people do that. A lot of people
Yeah.
do that, and space limitations are one thing to consider there. But most people also don't want to futz around with a home theater and getting a proper setup and things like that. So
Mhm.
they focus more on the video because video is just easier because it's all kind of built into the TV.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you're one of those people that buys an 85-inch TV and sits 15, 20 feet away, okay,
Yeah.
have fun. But it's like, okay, cool. Like you're definitely not going to be able to tell the difference between like Blu-ray and 4K or like 1080p and 4K. You will be able to see HDR from that distance, but in terms of
Mhm.
resolution, our eyes can only resolve so much. But with audio, yeah, we're still stuck in that kind of lossy, compressed state for movies and streaming. And I think people, there was a comment that I saw, which is definitely valid. I'm not saying it's invalid whatsoever. Let me see, I start it. Uh, yeah, it says 99.9% of people streaming won't hear a difference, and that's why it won't catch on. And I think he's talking about just like IMAX Enhanced and stuff like that.
For sure. Yeah.
Um, for me, I would just want to remove that layer of compression that's
Yeah.
on there, right?
Right.
Like I'd rather have it just. I mean, it's not going to take as much bit rate for high quality audio as it would video, right? Like we're already limiting the audio bit rate by like a severe amount, whereas like the video gets the majority of it
Mhm.
on streaming at least. We might be looking at might be looking at I don't know 5 to 10 megabytes per megabytes per second megabits. I'm sorry, I always get those confused. Um,
Megabits.
Megabits. So on a disc, right, which has a maximum bit rate, I think, of 4K UHD somewhere around the 70 to 90 mark. It can spike, but it can't sustain things above a certain bit rate, right? So that's audio
Mhm.
video combined.
Yeah.
And I used to know this off the top of my head, and I don't know. I've like not not I can't remember it off the top of my head, but if we look at audio like in streaming, like a lot of people, I mean, we're kind of getting at a point now with internet and stuff. A lot of places are offering gig service, not everywhere. I mean, we've talked about like your situation, Elon, where you're on Starlink and
Mhm.
but over time that stuff could get better too.
Yeah.
You could max out the speed or whatnot, like get better speed. So it's like you have the ability, you might even have the ability now to stream higher quality audio, but like these places are not offering it. So I think
Mhm.
outside of IMAX Enhanced and everything, I really think that like the push should be to get that lossless audio out there because it's just removing like it's removing issues that could potentially come up from like having lossy stuff. Again,
Yeah.
would people notice it? Probably not. But I'd rather just not even have that be a question of
Yeah.
like,
I'd rather just know it's uncompressed and
that's it.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
don't
And
have to worry.
I think we're kind of, and maybe this is opinion. Obviously, I'm not stating this as a fact. So, um, it's like those videos where people go, I'm not a doctor, so you can't like I can't tell you what to do, but here's what I do in this situation. But no, this is a preference, right? An opinion. We're kind of there with video compression, uh, in many ways. Streaming uh, at a decent bit rate with the quality that we have now can be kind of imperceptible a lot of times um, to what's on the disc. Is it perfect? No, but in motion, I think that's what we have to like consider is like if we stop and look at a picture and be like, well, yeah, that has obvious macro blocking or that has obvious artifacts
Mhm.
over the disc, right? But when are we stopping and watching that?
Yeah.
Like pause. It's something I actually just talked to Gene Delasala about with audio. It's like something can look flat on a REW graph or something can measure really well, but you could play it and it sounds like shit.
Yeah.
So just because it follows this kind of like reference doesn't mean that it's going to sound good or that it's like I've honestly had that problem before where like it looks good in measurements if I'm
Mhm.
doing like subwoofer calibrations, but you go to listen to it, it's like, whoa, the bass is like maybe I didn't do something right and the volume on the right side is way higher than the left and there's like a imbalance and that's something that a microphone will not pick up. Like a measurement won't show, but your ears will.
Yeah.
So I think like on paper, yeah, streaming video might not have all the bells and whistles of what we get on a disc. And again, it's always nice to have that remove that layer of compression, right? Which is why I still buy discs. But, sometimes if it's just late at night, I don't want to get out of my chair. I just want to start a movie up.
Right.
I'll throw on the digital version and I'm like, "Oh, okay. Yeah." I'm not doing any critical watching. I think that's the other thing. It's like if you're a reviewer like we are, and you're like critically watching a movie to talk about on the street, you want to watch the highest quality version of it, you know?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think hopefully like we'll get there with the audio side of stuff. That's my hope.
I know, man, because I mean, a lot of people need to remember that when Blu-ray became a thing, like you were kind of hinted at the whole HD DVD slash Blu-ray wars back in the day. Obviously, Blu-ray won, and that became the standard for high definition, stuff that you take home and you watch at home.
Yeah.
But 99% of Blu-ray discs have a DTS Master HD or HD Master, what is it? Master Audio,
Yeah.
audio track on it. So DTS was king when it came to Blu-rays. And then all of a sudden it shifted to Dolby when Atmos became a thing and 4K Blu-rays became a thing. So, it's kind of interesting how, that DTS has become essentially buried
Yeah.
when they were dominant for so many years.
Right.
So I'm hopeful that they can kind of come back like a phoenix rising out of the ashes or something. But even then, I'm still interested in the Auro CX and Auro 3D because I think they've been so just kind of niche and so like just popular in Europe for so long that I think with Auro CX, if it does indeed, you know, take off and people start to notice it and notice that it's just that much closer to uncompressed audio, that maybe it'll go worldwide because of it.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll be getting 4K Blu-rays in the United States or even other parts of Australia and Japan, whatever, start getting native RO 3D 4K Blu-ray discs, because they've kind of become the superior audio codec. So that I'm hoping that maybe it'll have just a domino effect if they indeed start to make waves with their streaming codec ROCX. I mean, I don't know how it's going to happen though.
Yeah.
Is it with ROCX? Is that still only going to be like with certain TV broadcast companies in Europe, or is it only going to be in Netflix Europe and
Right.
nowhere else in the world? Like, I want to hear ROCX
Yeah.
because that's their claim, is that
Yeah.
it's not quite lossless, but it's just
Kind of,
underneath.
yeah. It's
It's
trying to bridge
like
that gap.
here's Dolby
Hmm.
Digital Plus Atmos, here's ROCX, and here's
Yeah.
4K Blu-ray disc. So
Yeah, I wonder. I think the biggest hang up with that Auro 3D was the additional cost associated with it. Like,
mhm.
I could get Auro 3D on my X6300H for $200. To
Yeah,
me, there is not enough content, even up mixing. I'm happy with Dolby Surround Up Mixer, DTSX or DTS Neural X,
right.
that I don't feel the need to spend $200. And I don't know that like a $200 purchase for something like that is the best use of the money. I talked about that in my last video, growing up, not having money. I like spending money on things that make more sense to me, that would get me more benefit.
Mhm.
Like, instead of like, like, let's say I'm in a situation where like I could spend $200 on that or $200 on acoustic panels. I would spend the $200 on acoustic panels. They're not as like, extravagant or as popular or sexy, as like, oh, my system supports Auro 3D now.
Yeah.
But the acoustic panels will vastly improve my experience over what Auro 3D could do, um, in a room that's untreated. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So, yeah, I think that Auro 3D, or their new version, whatever it's called,
Mhm.
um, it will need to be more accessible and not locked behind a paywall. Essentially, that's
Yeah.
the problem that I think people had with it. We're not talking about a uh like a Dirac upgrade or Odyssey multi QX upgrade or something like that you have a tangible reason to do it, where it's like, this is going to get me better room correction, or I'm going to have access to more features that I really, as an enthusiast, want.
Mhm.
It's like, why would I pay $200 for basically I'm paying $200 for a glorified up mixer at this point, because there's just very, very little content out there for it. So they would need like a better adoption rate. And I think doing that would mean, or trying to achieve that would mean, that they would have to get rid of that license fee that I don't think most people would pay for.
Well, I mean, I wonder if that's why the newer Denons, the 3800, 4800, the new
Yeah.
Marantz Cinema line,
Mm-hmm.
um, those all support RO 3D.
Yeah.
So I wonder if that was kind of a push just to kind of just be a precursor to the fact that RO 3D is trying to make waves in places they haven't been before, or being accessible to a demographic they
Yeah.
haven't accessed before. So yeah, I wonder if they're just trying to do all these things to hopefully kind of slide in there and make a difference to those who already have and something that supports RO 3D.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I think all this talk too of like kind of lossless compressed or lossless audio. There is David actually brought it up. And I'll highlight this one. He says, "Well, make catch on," and then he corrected it to MQA, autocorrect for the win. Um,
Yay!
yeah. So for those that don't know, MQA is actually stands for Master Quality Authenticated. And then if we scroll down here on this What Hi-Fi article, it basically it's a method of digitally capturing and storing original master recordings as files that are small and convenient enough to download or stream without the sonic sacrifices traditionally associated with compressed files. It's currently available via Tidal.
Mhm.
Um,
Isn't it kind of like a zip file where it's like compressed, but then when you play it, it like opens up and like uncompresses kind of thing?
yeah, similar, but I still think it's like uh it's kind of like it's still compressed. So it's
Okay.
not bit for bit identical to something like lossless, which it's kind of like when you zip a file, right, on your computer where you
Mhm.
compress it into like a container, and then once it's uncompressed, it's bit for bit identical to what it was before it was compressed.
Yeah.
This, I think, still it does change the file itself. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, like so it's not the same as if you were to like look at the uncompressed file and then this file. If you break it down to ones and zeros and bits or whatever,
Mhm.
then it's gonna not be the same. Whereas like with lossless, the whole point of that is those are identical once lossless has been unzipped, essentially
Right.
decompressed. Um, I know that MQA is predominantly right now in the hi-fi space, so I wonder if it would catch on. Like hi-fi is a very niche market in an already niche market, so like some people are into hi-fi completely and they don't care about home theater. Other people are into home theater and they kind of, dive into hi-fi, or they may have started in hi-fi and gone to home theater, but they still, like to listen to their music, on their hi-fi setup, or they may have a separate setup. There are uncompressed or lossless streaming services like I don't remember what it's called. It starts with a Q. Qbuzz.
Cobuzz.
Cobuzz.
Yeah.
I heard that a lot when I went to Florida Audio Expo. A lot of the places were using Cobuzz
Mhm.
to stream their music, and I mean it's high res, it's which is great. When you're listening to $17,000 speakers and you go, okay, yeah, I can hear that. Honestly, I probably couldn't tell you the difference. My hearing's shot anyway from playing drums for way too many years, but no, like I again, it's just removing that extra layer of stuff, knowing that you're getting the highest quality, and I think that's really at the end of the day, whether we can tell the difference or not, we have to take these companies' word for it, right? Like
Yeah.
Dolby's like, we've done tests, and people can't tell the difference between Dolby Digital Plus and True HD, and it's like, but now like, okay, obviously you work for Dolby, you're trying to sell a product at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I would just rather not have to even have that question about like, am I getting the best quality that I can? Just say,
Mhm.
okay, give me this and call it a day. Like remove that barrier.
Right. I mean, how hard would it be? Whoa.
Oh,
How
is there a
hard would it
wasp?
be to like, would there would there be a possibility because obviously it's the streaming part. It's getting from point A to point B, ones and zeros in this, either a tiny little cable or something, or literally going through the air from one point to the other. So obviously it's got to be this very tiny package that's traveling either through the air or through a cable to get from the server to the source. But how difficult would it be for engineers to create some sort of technology that would, the server is here, it basically does a zip and a zip compression as it's traveling from the server
Right.
to the source. Once it hits the source, then it just unzips live, right?
Yeah.
Like could that be a possibility where it's zipping and unzipping live as opposed to, obviously that's probably available already for something you download because it's downloaded and it's, this tangible file that is completely there, as opposed to, information having to travel, in real time when you're actually
Right.
like streaming something on Netflix
Right.
or Disney Plus, whatever. So that's what I think should happen. Instead of coming up with these codecs that are still compressed, but just a little bit better. And
Yeah.
instead of going that route, they should just come up with some sort of technology that zips it and unzips it.
Yeah.
So then we're getting completely lossless audio.
Yeah. Or I mean, you could even have the zipped file on the server, like pre-zipped, right? Like you just get it from the studio and then it's beamed over the internet and uncompressed or decompressed, I should say, decompressed to lossless on your side, which is
Yeah.
kind of how movies are already done, right? Like they're on the disc as this zipped file essentially. And then your receiver sees that and so let me decode that. Let me decompress it.
Right.
This is Dolby Atmos. It has all that info in there, but now it's just like taking it out of that container and like basically mapping it to your system. That's what it's doing. So yeah, I think that we will eventually get there, and I think as technology like kind of further it like kind of comes further along. I mean, we're already at a place now where like we can. It's so funny to me. I mean, think about this. Like, I play a lot of games, and so like the download of a game will be like a certain amount, but then the install will be bigger because it's decompressing things within that. Games in general, there is decompression that happens in real time when you're playing a game. A lot of people don't realize that, not
Right.
just on the audio side, but like on textures and everything. Until it needs to be called up by the game and put into the scene, it's on like it's in there somewhere compressed. Like it's taking up less space and then it needs to be decompressed, put into your video card's memory and displayed on the screen. That's a very crude explanation of what it's doing, but
Right.
that's essentially like in a nutshell kind of how games are done. It can be very complicated, and I'm also being very careful not to put my thumb on my thing because every stream.
Yeah.
But I think we'll get there eventually. I think, it might take a while. It might take.
Yeah.
We're kind of there with 2-channel, where we could beam uncompressed or lossless 2-channel audio
Yeah.
over the internet. But to do that to multi-channel probably requires a little more engineering to figure out.
Yeah. Because I get it. Like lossless, uncompressed audio being beamed or going through a cable is obvious, at great distances is next to impossible currently. So I get that.
Yeah, and Abraham actually brings up a really good point. We just need the Pied Piper compression software already. Which
Yes, we do.
all we need is a Gavin Belson type,
Mhm.
you know, God, I loved that show.
Shout out to Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley and yeah. Oh, that's such a great Jin Yang. Could do a
Yeah.
whole episode on Silicon Valley and yeah. Favorite character in the whole show though? Nelson Big Head Spaghetti.
Yeah,
He's
dude.
just so like completely dumb throughout the whole. He's like just happens into all these like situations. He's like, oh
Mm.
yeah, like I moved the pool anyway. But turns out the person who designed it knew what they were doing, so I had the pool moved back to where it was. Uh,
Sure.
yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, what's funny is that show though was rooted in reality in many ways, and
Oh yeah.
you know they did all their research to. I mean, yeah, some of it was kind of like over the top, overdone, like uh, things that aren't kind of a reality yet.
Mhm.
But I think we'll get there. I mean, you know, if we look back at really, I mean, look at 2001: A Space Odyssey and how it kind of predicted, or not only say predicted, it kind of put that idea into people's heads of like video conferencing. And I mean,
Yeah.
look at what we're doing right now. Like, you know, all of these things start with an idea, and it's like all we need is some like genius person to say, you know what, I think I can do that Pied Piper compression thing, you know,
Mhm.
and then now it's like obviously labeled something different, and you know, instead of Gavin Belson, you have like Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, you know, kind of
Right.
being their weird CEO kind of anyway, um, CEO self. So yeah, I think it just
I
might take
know.
time. I think we will eventually get there, but the question is, will it be important enough for people to even care about? Like from and by people I mean like
Yeah.
the common person who goes into Best Buy and picks up a TV and soundbar. Are they gonna care
Yeah.
that they're getting lossless audio?
Because it's true. Like people like you and I, and the people that are watching this stream right now, we're weird. Like we are not normal people when it comes to the fact that we really enjoy audio. Because
Yeah.
I totally get it how somebody will go to Best Buy
Mm-hmm.
and they get a TV, they mount the TV, and you're done. You've got this gorgeous picture all contained within this thin little thing.
Yeah.
Um, Whereas if you want to go whole hog with your home theater, you know, you get the TV, you mount it or you know, put it on your entertainment stand, but then you got to worry about speaker wire or worry about where you're going to put the sound bar and the
Yeah. Yeah.
surrounds and the subwoofer. I mean, I totally get it. As a
Yeah.
just a general consumer, just being able to pick up a TV, mount it on a wall, and call it good, and you get gorgeous 4K quality picture. I mean, it makes sense, and it makes sense why all these streaming services favor video.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And
we're
Kevin,
weird.
we are weird, definitely. Kevin brings up a good point that I was actually just thinking about as we were talking. He says, I highly doubt the studios streaming providers will do anything more than we get now because there's only a few hundred of us that have good HT rigs. Bummer.
I
Um,
know.
I would hope it'd be more in the thousands at least, but you know, who knows? Who knows? I mean, how many people are in the world across the United States and just everywhere else? Um, but it was something I was thinking about, discussing with a friend of mine like a while ago. You know, back when I got into home theater in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was like a general excitement from people around you, even that weren't into the space, that you put a kick-ass home theater together and you had like friends come over and they were like, holy shit,
Mhm.
like they were just floored by this experience that that like they saw the speakers, they saw the subwoofers, they saw the 19-inch TV. I'm just kidding. Like, you know, you had a big TV, but there was an excitement around it that I think I I haven't, like, admittedly don't have many people over the house these days, but when people do come over, they're like, that's really cool. Like
Yeah.
that's the general level of excitement I get from people. Whereas like, you know, I think as this like, you know, not to get too deep philosophical here, but as like kind of as a society we've shifted into to other things. A lot of people we've talked about watch movies on their phones, on their iPads.
Yeah.
Their home theater is more accessible than it's ever been. But that, also is saying that like technically a sound bar is a home theater, or can get you into home theater. I wouldn't like it's. I will never call a sound bar with a true multi-channel experience. They can fake it to a point, but it's just
What?
not. Yeah, yeah. Newsflash. Um, but there is. I think that's why. Kind of going off of what this person says. I demo my system, and my friends and family love it, but they won't buy anything. For that 10 minutes, they are blown away, and I
Yeah.
think like it's gotten a little different because I have the dedicated theater room that I've kind of designed myself. I put it all together. I think walking into that room inside a like kind of nondescript hallway or house where you're like, I don't know what the hell I'm walking into.
Hmm.
It's like that's kind of awe inspiring in a way because you walk in and for me at least, you walk in, the sound deadens. It's tight, like
Hmm.
it's acoustically treated. It looks like a little mini theater essentially, and but still, like I think it's cool. But the family members I brought over, I mean, they are floored, like this person's family members. But for that 10 minutes or so that they're watching a demo, but
Hmm.
they're gonna go home and listen on their Bose system and be happy with that. Where
Right.
I wouldn't. That's me. I wouldn't. So there's like an excitement that has like dwindled over the years that I don't maybe understand why necessarily because it's more accessible now, but I guess people also don't really want to spend the time to set all that up. They just want to
Yep.
grab the TV, grab the sound bar, pay Best Buy to mount it, and do a calibration. Don't ever pay Best Buy to do any type of calibration. Um, and call it a day and enjoy their system, which
Yeah.
is their prerogative. But um, I mean, I don't know about you, like Elon, how often you go and listen to other home theaters in your area. Um, I've had
Oh,
the
I don't.
I mean, I've had the opportunity to tour some pretty cool home theaters. Some completely like out there, like that $1 million Star Wars home theater that I'm like, that's cool. I would never have this for me. That's you know my preference, but uh, at the end of the day, I kind of walk away from some of that stuff. I'm like, did I hear $1 million in this?
Yeah.
And for someone like me who's struggled their kind of whole life to like up into a point, it's like no, like I wouldn't spend that amount of money. Like I can't justify spending 30 grand on a pair of speakers or a single speaker for that matter, or like a
Hmm.
Trinov, like, $32,000 Trinov just seems like insane to me. But
Yeah.
that's me. That's not that person. That person does their own thing. And I'm not criticizing that person. I want to make that clear. Like, whenever we talk about stuff like that, it's like, did I hear $1 million? Well, no, I don't think so. But I'm also not criticizing that person's choices. Like, I know that that wouldn't be the right choice for me, but I'm not going to tell them what to do. It's
Yeah.
kind of like,
Yeah. They can do
you
whatever they
know,
want.
Elon, I'm going to tell you what type of content you're going to make on your channel. I'm not going to do that, like it's your channel, bro. Like, you do you, like you're going to enjoy what you're going to enjoy. If you ask my opinion on something, I'll give it, but I'm not also just not going to tell you like, hey, yeah, I really don't care about this. I'm be like, hey, good job, man. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah,
Good for
we have
you.
good for you. Good for you. And how was it? Um, uh, that classic thing. Yeah. I think that, kind of getting off the top realm of the conversation here with what we're talking about, but it's all relative, right, to home theater and what we do, and
Yes.
to kind of get good audio, you have to have a decent system. And I think going back to these kind of streaming services offering better audio quality, I wonder if the incentive is there for them to invest more money.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the real crux of the issue, right?
I mean, there are definitely a lot more people interested in home theater in general because of COVID and how people just don't really want to go to the theater
Yeah.
anymore. But at the same time, yeah, it's still just your average consumer who doesn't really hear the difference or care. So
Yeah.
yeah, they just want an easy fix. And that's totally fine because a lot of people just don't, yeah, they honestly just don't care.
Yeah. Oh, I got to highlight this comment. My friends laughed when I spent ages running speaker cables all through the walls. They were just like, just use Bluetooth or heard of Sonos. Those friends are dead now. Yeah,
Or at least dead to Paul.
dead to Paul. Yeah. And my mother-in-law is not allowed over in the house. No, no, it's just so funny. No, that's a total like lack of understanding of what goes into this stuff, and it's okay to a point, but like when you're trying to explain to them and they just kind of like get that kind of like, what? Like I got to go watch TikTok or something. You know, it's like,
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the direction we're heading, where everybody just wants a quick and easy fix
yeah,
for their
they want instant
entertainment
gratification.
purposes. Mhm.
Instant gratification. And there's not a lot of instant gratification in this hobby. There's a lot of trial and error and a lot of setup and blood, sweat, and tears go into this. But like any type of thing you're passionate about, I think is worth putting that effort in.
Yeah.
And if you're not passionate about it, then don't do it. That's like, like go buy a sound bar. I'm not going to judge someone who has a sound bar. Like Elon, you have a sound bar, and I judge you all the time, but that's because we're friends. That's the difference. No,
Hey, I have a passive sound bar.
yeah. So I think there's a lot of gatekeeping that happens in this community.
Of course.
And there has for years. I don't know. I want to do my part to try to change that because I think everyone could have a kick-ass system. Or if from what they already have. Kevin emails me a lot and I never respond. I'm sorry, Kevin. I did get your last email. I'm going to respond. I promise. But like, he will talk about his system like it's not the greatest. I'm like, mine isn't either. Like, to me, it doesn't matter if your system isn't the greatest. Like, what are you doing to make it the best that it can be?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what's fun about it to me. It's like you can take a $200 speaker and make it sound better. Okay, let's try it. Let's do it. Let's see what we can do. It's like get the most out of what you have. Don't apologize for what you have. Like enjoy what you have because, not to get morbid. I talked to Michael about this, Youth Man, and I was like, we can't take any of this stuff with us when we die, so enjoy it while you have it, So
yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I went down the dark road there.
I mean, kind of harkening back to just us being so weird.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, like I was probably like 12, 13 years old. My dad, at that particular time in my life would often, he sang in our church choir. He was a really good tenor. But he also kind of did this kind of traveling singing gig with this partner of his. Maybe like a couple times a month or something, he'd go around town or maybe like even 20 miles away, whatever. And he had like a really nice mixer and tape player with these two gigantic speakers. And just out of curiosity, I was like, man, that'd be really cool if I hooked this up to the TV. because I've just always had that, just this desire to make things look and sound the best they can.
Yeah.
And I remember specifically it was um, when Fantasia 2000 came out. So that was probably around the year 2000, right? So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
maybe it was more, I was like 17 or 18. But yeah, I remember watching Fantasia 2000, having, and I just kind of figured it out. I didn't know what to do, but I just wanted it so bad that I just kind of messed around with stuff and figured it out and hooked up those gigantic speakers to the TV. And man, it sounded so much better. And I even brought my mom and dad in, and I was like, man, look at this. Watch this now, having it hooked up to these speakers. And they were just totally blown away. But like, it didn't last very long because my dad just didn't really care as much as I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And later down the road, I even had this Iowa, stereo system. I had a 3-disc CD changer and
Oh man.
two tape decks. But it also had, because it had the speakers that came with it, but it also had these like 2 satellite speakers that you could put behind you too. And it was still stereo. It wasn't like actual surround sound. It didn't have like a Dolby decoder or anything.
Yeah.
But even then, like I still hooked up, when I had that in my bedroom, I hooked up like a little 13-inch TV, I hooked that up to the Iowa stereo system. And I remember watching the special edition of Star Wars on DVD. And for the first time ever in my own little bedroom, I could hear when the X-Wing flew into the frame. I heard it behind me first to the left, and then shoo, and then it flew into frame, and then went around the planet or whatever. And I was like, that kind of stuff, it just made me so happy, and it made me giggle. And I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
this is paradise, even though it was like the dumbest, cheapest stereo system. Just the fact that I had like pseudo surround sound, I was just on cloud 9.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, it's always been a part of me.
Did you hear Greedo or Han shoot first?
Han, of course.
Of course. My wife and I are actually I've watched it. My wife and I are watching the Light and Magic documentary on Disney Plus. And she is just loving it. We're 3 episodes in, and she's like, "Whoa, that's how they did." Like, she had no idea some of these people invented these things and did this. And it's just like, she loves movies, but she's not as like the kind of, she didn't go to film school like I did. Like, she loves behind the scenes stuff, but it's like seeing this stuff, like how do you think of this stuff like back in the 70s, right? Nobody's done this before.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was funny you just mentioned that though, because I'm like, in the documentary, George Lucas is like talking about like how he wants to preserve this and preserve that. So I'm like, why'd you mess with the movies then?
Yep.
Just because you could doesn't mean you shoulda.
Yeah.
Just leave it alone, George.
Yeah. That's Ian Malcolm's line in Jurassic Park.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I also
Too
saw
caught
this
up.
comment that, right? Yeah. You got too caught up and didn't, you do it. I can't remember it.
Yeah. Too
I
caught
should
up
know.
in figuring out how to do it when you should have.
Like, should you do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah, I messed it up.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. Neither of us are Jeff Goldblum. But I like this comment because I read this as like, when I go to visit friends with soundbars, I just mute the TV. In my head, what I heard here was there's sound coming out of both the soundbar and the TV at the same time. And I can't tell you how many times I've been over to friends and families' houses where they'll have a sound
Mm.
bar or a home theater, and like sounds coming out from the TV along with the sound from the home theater, and it just bothers the hell out of me. I gotta, it's like, just turn, like, why is this happening? And it's not a situation where they're trying to use the TV as a center channel. No, they got a center channel, or they have, like, it's just doubling up the. Now it's too low. I can't hear it. Well, then turn the sound bar up or something.
Or they have that smooth motion, whatever, on the TV.
Oh, yeah.
You know, all the various names that all the manufacturers have.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Tom Cruise isn't a fan of that either, if you remember his
Correct.
thing
His
coming out.
PSA.
I'm actually editing a video for Audioholics right now that's deals with Sony calibration, and they mentioned that, and I had to cut to Tom Cruise in that video just to say that.
Yes.
Like, I want to talk to you about motion interpolation. It's like, but yeah, you know, and you know what the thing is though, I don't use motion interpolation unless it's a very specific use case. I'll occasionally, I'm more of a purist when it comes to that, where I don't turn any of that on. But if it's something like a stand-up comedy or something like that, where there's a lot of camera motion back and forth, it's not really where I'm concerned about the video quality. I might put it on very lightly to smooth out that motion, that's just slightly. Where it doesn't bother me, but like 99.9% of the time, I'm turning that stuff off. I don't want it to muck with the picture. Does everyone else turn off the smooth motion at all their friends' houses? Yes. Much to the dismay of the people that houses I go, like, my TV doesn't look the same. It doesn't look as good. I want it to look like I'm standing on the set watching Johnny Depp in Pirates of the Caribbean, because this is real. This is real. I want my movies to look real.
I mean, it's true when people call it the soap opera effect.
And that's
it looks like a soap opera, and that wasn't the intention.
Right. And but you know, that is something that we could talk about on a later stream, the whole like high frame rate kind of thing, you know, where like the yin and the yang to that is like, okay, we've gotten used to 24 frames per second in movies forever. Now something new's coming along, you know, 48 frames per second, 60. Do we not like it because it's new and that we're so used to 24? Or do we not like it because it makes everything look fake? And does everything look fake because that's what our brains are like, have been trained to think? I see a soap opera, I know I'm going to see bad acting, I'm going to see bad sets, I'm going to see, you know, whatever. It begs the question. It's like, are we, you know, like there are obvious benefits to it, but there are obviously downsides to it as well. Like it does, like, you know, they settle on, we're not going to get into it here, but I think that might be a cool conversation to have eventually about it, because it is something I think about, and I think for certain types of content, I think it works. Documentaries, especially.
Yeah.
For action movies, Gemini Man was not the greatest way to watch that movie in 60 frames per second.
Yeah.
It just, well, we can talk about that later. I think it's you know, and also why is it bad for movies but okay for video games to go that high, you know? And I don't think people think about it, but like, it's like there's a difference there between like passive media and interactive media.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But to me, high frame rate looks just as bad as interpolation. I agree. I saw all the Hobbit movies in high frame rate at the theater, and it was the only shots that looked good to me were the ones where it was like the drone shots or the helicopter shots of them like passing over like big mountains, or it really felt like you were there. I thought that was cool, but it completely took out like kind of the fantastical element, because it was like I was watching a gimmicky theme park ride, you know, so. Oh, I mean, that's the wrong one. Sorry. And he says, someone playing on 140 hertz, 144 hertz, I'm always struggling with watching 24 frames per second content, honestly. I play all my games pretty much at like between 100 and 120. Variable refresh rate. And so like I get it. It's especially once you get used to that, even going down to 60 feels like a stutter fest, a juddery
Yeah.
mess. You get used to a higher frame rate. It's hard to go back. Um, but yeah, sports, I think there's like reality TV sports. I think with sports, it's more about a higher frame rate allows you to follow the action easier.
Yeah, less blur
More
because they're moving so fast. Like,
more frames.
yeah.
Um, I love high frame rate for games. I just like Yellow Mobile here. I like at least 60 is my minimum.
Mhm.
But for movies, I just give me 24. Like that's what I want. That's what I grew up with. There's something about it that just I don't know. Again, I don't want to get too far into it, man. We could
Yeah.
yeah, we turn this into like a 4-hour live stream. But yeah, I think we're about an hour 45 here. If you guys have any questions now about anything you want to ask us, general questions, topical questions, doesn't matter. You can ask away. Elon, do you have anything that you kind of want to close with the whole audio format thing?
Yeah, I mean, like I was kind of hinting at before, I just really hope there's competition now. Um, Dolby has been king for so long that they don't have any incentive to really do that much innovation right now because they're like, yeah,
Yeah.
everybody wants us, everybody listens to us, we're the king,
They're that
we're the de facto
that
audio
popular girl at high
codec.
school that everybody wants to
Yeah,
talk to. Yeah.
exactly. So it's like, they need to be dethroned. That's
Mhm.
all I'm saying. Or at least have the competition breathing down their neck so bad that they got to pivot and do something to
Yeah.
keep that top spot. Because right now, yeah, they're too comfortable in
Mhm.
what they're doing currently, and they're just like, because as we've said before, like because it's so saturated, because it's so in demand, there's few and far between Atmos mixes that are actually very good. They're all just kind of good or
Yeah.
subpar, and maybe a handful that are like spectacular.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that needs to change.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it can come down to director's intent, creator's intent. Some
Mhm.
people like Christopher Nolan you'll never have an Atmos Christopher Nolan mix. I
Right.
can almost guarantee you, as long as that guy's alive, there will never be remixes of
Right.
his stuff in Dolby Atmos because he hates it. He
Mhm.
hates it with a passion. I don't agree with his stuff, but maybe he knows better than me. I don't know. We're all allowed our opinions and preferences. But I think that I'm right there with you, man. Like I think competition is good, especially when it's fierce. I mean, we see it all the time in the console gaming space and other avenues. I mean, of life. Just having competing things forces an evolution, kind of thinking outside the box, innovation. And I think that Dolby kind of said, "Hey, we made Dolby Atmos. Let's just like sit on our laurels for a while and
Yeah.
just kind of reap the benefits and enjoy what we did." But now that they really need to just kind of what's next? What could they do that's like that would pioneer
Yeah.
something, or what could DTS do that would pioneer the what they're doing?
I mean, I know they're kind of heavily leaning to car audio right now because Dolby Atmos in the car is like a pretty new thing, and they're really pushing that with particular car manufacturers. So that doesn't really help us out all that much because we want better, Dolby Atmos in the home. So, yeah, I mean, they just need some sort of kick in the butt.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They do. Well, I think we have a couple questions that we could uh, go over here. I'm like looking at
Yeah.
some older star comments that I didn't unfavorite. Kevin asks, "How about getting a final set in stone speaker placement requirement?" Yes, yes, I would love that. The problem is we have multiple. We have right currently we have Dolby Atmos, which if you follow their kind of guide on how to set up their Atmos speakers is completely wrong. You do not want them in line with the mains. I'm telling you that right now as someone who's had them in line with the mains before.
Mhm.
Completely detrimental to your sound. Um, so we have that. We have the technically like the DTS X, which has like is that the one with the voice of God or was it Auro 3D?
Or 3D.
Okay.
Yeah.
But DTSX, I mean, like, so each one has their own kind of proprietary, most ideal setup for that, like their format. They will all work with one another relatively easily, but like you set it for Dolby Atmos, you're not going to get 100% as good of a DTSS X experience if you don't follow their guide, right?
Mhm.
Same with like Auro 3D. So I think there needs to be a universal. I would love for there to be a universal standard in terms of like speaker placement. We already have it for the
Yeah.
main channels. The height channels add some complexity there, I suppose. Um,
Yeah, because if you look, I mean, I don't know if I can pull this up right now, but it seems like DTSX Pro, or just DTSX in general, and RO3D are a little bit closer to what they want you to actually do. Because, like, let's see here. See if I can bring this up. Because they're kind of based, both DTSX and R3D are kind of based on circular patterns,
yes. Yeah.
as opposed to Atmos, or at least Dolby's diagrams are more like
Yeah.
rectangular, you know?
Sorry, I'm laughing because every time you activate your share screen, it makes a little ding on my end and it scares the shit out of me. And I don't know how to turn it off. I hear just like a little ding in my headphones. I'm like, oh. Here,
Sorry. Here we go.
yeah, here we'll hide that comment.
So
So
here's DTSX and DTSX Pro, but as you can see, they're based on circles.
yeah,
So yeah, the front left and right are kind of towed in a little bit compared to the center channel. Your surrounds are obviously straight to the side. But yeah, everything is kind of in this circular pattern. And it's the same with R3D. Especially if you have a voice of God channel, then it's going to be straight up because they have your ear level, your heights, and then your voice of God. So it's like this dome.
right.
And I mean, technically, Dolby Atmos, as far as like when you get like a sound bar or something, or the Sony HT-A9, it even that claims that it will create a dome of audio. But that's not only Dolby Atmos, that's more kind of leaning towards Sony's thing, their 360 spatial sound mapping.
Yeah.
So just another thing to think about. Like, yeah, because do you
Yeah.
want a cube or do you want a dome? So I honestly think at the end of the day, I think a dome, or at least like some sort of circular pattern, would probably be more ideal to be able to accommodate everything: Atmos, DTSX, and RO3D. Because RO3D was the first immersive audio format before Dolby Atmos even came out. And their suggestion is to have your height channels Not the voice of God, obviously, because that's just
Right, right.
supposed to be straight up above. But your height channels are supposed to be 30 degrees up from your ear level. Because if you break down psychoacoustics, because we are binaural creatures with only two ears, having something 30 degrees up, your ears being on the side of your head will perceive height information more accurately if those speakers are 30 degrees up. So that's honestly what I modeled my proper home theater around. My height speakers are 30 degrees up. They are not in the ceiling. They are not like anywhere else. They are 30 degrees up, basically in the corner of the walls, front and rear, and sides. So yeah, that's what I've come to realize, or at least that's what I've figured out is kind of like the best hybrid system you could have is if you have your heights 30 degrees up, because then it still accommodates any immersive audio format pretty well.
True.
So
Quoted for truth, QFT. That's what the cool kids say. Yeah, no, I think that there's, I mean, with a lot of this stuff, right? It's a compromise.
yeah,
We have to go, okay, like I can do this in this room and I can't do that. So I have to compromise. You know, Abraham brings up a very, very great point. My wife is going to hate when she gets home and the living room is in a circle. Yeah. You know, when you have a common space, it's very, very difficult to mess around with speaker placement because it's just, you know, whereas like, you know, I'm fortunate enough to have a dedicated room where I could really go to town and be like, you know what, I want to try this and just do something kind of weird or quirky, like, you know, a very popular thing that I'm actually going to do is when I'm revamping everything in the theater room is move the side surrounds forward a bit instead of, you know, kind of back. Because what happens is when my wife is watching a movie with me and she's off to the left and reclined, it blocks that speaker over there completely. So moving those up to like 80 degrees, slightly in front of you on the side surrounds, even though that I don't have any back surrounds right now, will actually create a more enveloping soundstage and won't block that speaker when she's in front of it. So, you know, that's something I've noticed. It's like there's this kind of this imbalance when we're watching a movie. It's like I know something's supposed to be playing over there, but I can barely hear it because, you know, she's kind of in front of the speaker blocking it. And same with me, I am on the right side blocking that speaker for her. So she's
yeah,
not getting the full experience either. So yeah, I think it's all a compromise. I do want to maybe look at adding back surrounds. I don't know.
yeah.
SVS just reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to review their new was it
What was
Ultra?
Evolution?
Yeah, yeah.
Ultra
They have a
Evolution? Yeah,
whole line of stuff. So I know they have to fill customer orders first,
sure.
understandably. But yeah, so hopefully in a couple months or next month or so that I'll be getting those in and finally get around to that PB4000 review. And I've had for, you know, 8 months or whatever. But yeah, I think don't laugh at me. No, I think we have one more question, or do we have more?
We had a few that came in, yeah.
Okay, yeah, let me see. So Anthony asks, for Atmos, would it be better to move them to the back wall than forward with 5 channels?
I think that was more of a statement. It would be.
Oh, yeah, you know what? I'm drunk. I can't. I'm not drunk, guys, by the way. I'm not. No, yeah, I Atmos is really finicky. I'll say that much. If you set it up wrong, it can sound like you can have a lot of smearing with the bed later, meaning that
Yeah.
you won't it's going to be like really really there's not going to be any separation, and you want enough separation where the Atmos speakers don't call attention to themselves 24/7 when you're watching a movie or all the time. But you also don't want so much smearing with the bed layer that it starts to just all become kind of like a jarbled mess, right?
Yeah.
Like you want enough separation. So, um, yeah, I think knowing where the compromises are, like uh, my top rear like height speakers are a little too close to the wall, but I couldn't mount them anywhere else. And they're still within tolerance. I think they're
Right.
still within like the 35-degree angle that my friend Steven Smith recommended to me when he kind of gave me he kind of looked over my theater and said, put them here and here and kind of helped me lay all that stuff out. And I like he does that for a living. And I trust him. Home Theater Gurus on YouTube, if you're not familiar. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's all basically it's everything we do. We don't. None of us really have perfect rooms, even dedicated spaces. That unless you're designing a room from the ground up with like a home theater designer, it's gonna be really hard to get things exactly where they need to be. So it's all like a compromise where you have to go.
Yeah.
You know, okay, I've got to do
Well,
this or that.
that brings me to this comment, Jason MC. This is the reason why I think Sony's spatial sound mapping and Dirac, among the other DSPs and AVR manufacturers, are going to lean more into processing. And I totally agree, because not only like maybe 1%, 2%, maybe 5 at the most are going to have an actual dedicated home theater space where they can put speakers precisely where they need to be. It's going to be a situation where you just have to put speakers in a certain place because that's the only place you can put them
Yeah.
realistically. So things like 360 spatial sound mapping and Dirac Live and Dirac Art are going to just say, put your speakers anywhere and we will create phantom speakers to where they should mathematically be. So you can just have your space and make it look however you want, most aesthetically pleasing as far as your speaker placement, and then the processing will take care of the rest.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I totally get that. Yeah, I think that's exactly where, just because of COVID, so many more people are interested in home theater.
Yeah.
So if they knew that they don't have to get everything laser precise on placement, and it's all just up to the processing power that will fix those issues, then yeah, that's another reason for the average consumer to be able to experience a really kick-ass home theater, because the processing is just going to be super good.
Yeah. Yeah. I have to step away for just a second. I will be right back.
Okay.
Elin, take the reins. I'll remove myself.
Okay. Let's see. Using 5-channel, just looking over some of the questions here. 5-channel, 7-channel. Jason MC also asks, using 5 channels of a 7-channel AVR, does one connect the surrounds to the side surrounds or rear speaker channels? You will connect those to the surrounds. The only time you have surround backs or rear surrounds is when you have 7. That's the only need for surround backs, is when you're actually dealing with 7 ear level speakers. So if you have a 7-channel AVR, but you're only utilizing 5 ear level speakers, you will connect your surrounds to the surround channels. Yeah. So hopefully that answers that question, Jason. And Abraham asks, any recommendations for when you can place rear speakers behind you? I have them in the ceiling, but should they be at certain angles distance? I mean, honestly, that's again, that's kind of going along with processing power, or at least, room correction software, because that's the most important part that will be involved in your setup. Like in my case, like how I said I wanted to have surrounds in the ceiling because I can't really, my open concept living room just doesn't really accommodate having speakers on the ground. I mean, I could technically have them like behind the couch, maybe. They wouldn't be so in the way, but they would still kind of be in the way as far as like your normal flow of traffic around my living room. So you might trip over a speaker if you're not being too careful, or if my kids aren't being too careful, which happens more often than I would like. But so that's honestly why I don't want to have any ear level surrounds. So that's why I'm going to have, hopefully, surrounds in ceiling, but they're still technically just ear level surrounds, because then I'm going to run, room correction software, and they're going to be, in the software, they're going to be labeled as surrounds. So then the processing will just do its thing and get the distance right, the levels right, the delay, dialed in. So that way they should sound like surrounds, even though they're in the ceiling. So yeah, there's no real rhyme or reason, or at least one particular place you can put surrounds that is better than all the rest. It really just comes down to where you can put them and let room correction software do the rest.
Yeah. I said, yeah, like didn't really hear anything you said, so I came back late.
Yay!
Yes.
All right, let's hide that. Okay. Yeah, I think Matt Kavanaugh says for 7.1, my wife says I have to put side surrounds in ceiling. Should they be level with the listening spot, forward or back? Well, honestly, if it's side surrounds, yeah, they should be in line with your listening position.
Yeah.
Because that's where they should be. If they were on the ground, that's where they would be if you have 7.1. So you've got your surround backs behind you, but your side surround should be in line with your couch or whatever, wherever your main listening position is. So yeah, if they're in the ceiling, then yeah, you would install them in line with your listening position.
Yeah. Agreed. I'm a fan of if on the bed layer having as many ear level as possible within okay, back surrounds can't really, because most of the time your seat or your chair is going to cover up the tweeter and stuff and really just not do you any favors. So like you typically have to raise those a little bit, but I would always recommend raising them as minimally as possible just to clear the back, especially with stuff like Atmos and DTSX and stuff like that, because you want that separation between the bed layer and the heights. You don't want, the closer you put your surrounds to like the ceiling, the less pronounced any height effects will be, because like your brain is just gonna like process all those sounds right from like the side surrounds. If they're higher, I mean, like if they're higher and they're kind of closer to the height channels versus the rest of the speakers in the bed layer, they're gonna kind of blend together and not have as much separation, which is kind of the opposite of what Atmos, you want that bubble sound, really. I think, right?
Yes.
What year is it?
2024.
Oh no. I thought it was 2022. But There we go. Well, I think we're at that 2-hour mark, man. I think they're gonna wrap up that here. You feel good about that, Elon?
I think so. I think
Yeah. I don't see any other comments or concerns.
Oh, there was one.
Did we miss one?
It's kind of a funny comment. But it's honestly something I've thought about myself. Yellowmobile says, if Atmos has speakers on the front, side, rear walls, and the ceiling, is the next evolution in floor speakers. Put the sphere in atmosphere.
Hey.
But yeah, I've honestly thought about that. But I think that's probably not going to be a thing unless something like the Apple Vision Pro becomes more widely accessible to and a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
So that more consumers can actually get a home theater experience that way, because that might revolutionize watching movies and stuff to where it's not just this horizontal picture in front of you,
Yeah.
but maybe it's more like, you can actually see information or actually see stuff above you, below you, basically like almost like 180-degree IMAX kind of situation. I think that is probably going to be eventually what consuming entertainment will be. And in that case, then yeah, you probably want to have speakers in the floor for when there's stuff actually happening kind of below you. So maybe you're in some sort of like levitating chair that allows you to follow the action wherever you want, really.
Yeah.
But
For the love of God. No Apple Vision Pro. I'm in agreement with this. I think that the tech is cool as hell, but oh man, I don't want to watch movies with something strapped to my face. It's bad enough as a glasses wearer going to see a 3D movie and having to put 3D glasses over my glasses, or wear contacts and my eyes just dry out for the next 2 or 3 hours because I'm like,
Well, they've got those, you can order prescription lenses for the Apple Vision Pro. But actually, kind of going back to the very beginning of this stream, asking just what we're up to, I do have a friend. He is in Arizona, but he said he would be willing to hopefully like fly up here because he has an Apple Vision Pro. And, he's kind of said that he might come up here so that I can witness the Apple Vision Pro when it comes to home theater. I mean, I already know that listening to movies with AirPods Pro in my ears is really cool, but you're still not going to get like a real true bass rumble because
there's
you're
no
dealing with
tactile
tiny little
response there.
drivers. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's never gonna be like a
So unless you're wearing some sort of like vest,
is this to say like a tactile vest that like the old school like Sega Genesis oh god, what was like it would vibrate your chest and it was like killing people with pacemakers and stuff. It was awesome. Like it was, back in the time when like nobody cared. Like just yeah. Should we put a pacemaker warning on the box? No. Who with a pacemaker is going to use this? And that one guy. I will. I think it being more affordable would help a lot of people. I know it's relatively new technology, and everything Apple does is unfortunately expensive. Especially when it's new stuff. I was on the Apple hate bandwagon for a while, but suddenly I can't use Android phones. I use a MacBook Air for most of my work, and like I've just converted over. But I still have a gaming PC, so that's something Apple just will never be able to match.
True. That is very true.
Especially like, yeah. Anyway, You're seeing the same comment I'm seeing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where would the Vision Pro subwoofer go?
I can tell you where it would go, but this would be instantly demonetized. Um,
Right up your bum.
right? Yeah, there you go. On that note, I think that's a great place to stop there. Or I'm already making butt jokes. I think it's time to
I
call
think
it
so,
a
yeah.
night there. Well, thank you everyone for joining so much. This was an awesome conversation. I think we're gonna take next week, kind of
Yeah, my
you get
kids and my
spring
wife
break
have
and
spring
yeah,
break, so I think we're gonna take a break next week.
yeah, and same. Like I'm just gonna work on some stuff. Hopefully we'll have my next video out this coming weekend, if not starting next week. And that's going to be about replacing or like the TV stand and all that stuff, and then finally diving into the tutorials and having more space to do that was going to be so great. I can't wait, honestly. It's dude, like, and having the Pocket 3 has made a tremendous difference in the theater room because of the
Yeah,
size of that thing. I don't even use a tripod. I just put it on a mic stand.
right.
And it's changed the way I film in the theater room. It takes me minutes to set up versus a half an hour at least.
Yeah,
It's so, and the quality is, I mean, you guys, if you guys watched the last video I did, the quality is crazy. And I really didn't even
yeah.
do much to that stuff. So yeah, I'm super excited. And I'm excited, Elon, to hear about your Apple Vision Pro stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, I know what type of
I
movies you'll
hope.
be watching, but whoa. But no, that's yeah. I've not experienced one myself. I don't know that I will anytime soon. But
Mm.
I don't know. Technology, man. Technology.
Yeah, I gotta text that guy, see what he's
Yeah.
up to, because he just got back from a vacation in Japan. So
Okay.
hopefully
Very
he wants
cool.
to come on up.
Very cool.
We'll geek out.
Hey, man, you got to do it. Got to do it. You
Yeah.
off grid living there.
Right.
Well, thanks everybody. We will catch you not next week, but the week after. Take care,
Yeah.
and I don't know.
Yeah.
We need to sign off.
Enjoy your Easter if you
Yes.
care
Yeah.
about Easter. I know that's coming
Yeah.
up.
Hunt for some eggs. Just
Yeah.
don't forget about that one that's over in like the corner that you may have forgotten about years prior.
Right.
You're like, what smells?
God, what is that?
Oh,
Rancid.
who died? But anyway, guys, thank you so much, and we will catch you in another live stream.
Bye.